Spoštovane in spoštovani, naj vas na ta mrzel dan toplo pozdravim pred Muzejem novejše zgodovine Slovenije na prvem odprtju mednarodne potujoče razstave Identiteta na prepihu. Ker gre za mednarodno razstavo in so tudi gostje večjezični, bomo nekoliko preklapljali tekom odprtja med slovenščino in angleščino. Prevode govorov pa lahko najdete na spletni strani identityontheline.eu. Dear sirs and madams, warmly welcome to the National Museum of Contemporary History in Ljubljana on this cold day at the first opening of the international traveling exhibition Identity on the Line. As this is an international exhibition and the guests are also multilingual, we will switch slightly between Slovene and English during the opening. We are extremely happy to be able to greet in our midst a representative from the Ministry of Culture of Republic of Slovenia and high guests representatives of embassies. We would also like to greet all of you who follow us live on YouTube. Izjemno veseli smo, da lahko v naši sredi pozdravimo predstavnico iz Ministrstva za kulturo Republike Slovenije in visoke goste, predstavnike veleposlaništev. Vsekakor pa voščimo pozdrave tudi vsem, ki nas v živo spremljate prek YouTuba. Razstavo, ki jo danes odpiramo, govori o fizičnih premikih, migracijskih procesih, ki so se odvijali v 20. stoletju v Evropi in oblikovali identitete milijonov ljudi. Nastala je v sklopu evropskega projekta ION, Identity on the Line, Identiteta na prepihu. In bo po Ljubljani predstavljena še v 11 evropskih mestih. The exhibition we are opening today talks about physical movements, migration processes that took place in 20th century Europe and shaped the identities of millions of people. It was created as part of European project ION, Identity on the Line, and will be presented in 11 more European cities after Ljubljana. Therefore, I hand over the floor to the director of the Museum of Recent History of Slovenia, Dr. Jože Dežman. Besedo torej predajam direktorju Muzeja novejše zgodovine Slovenije, dr. Jožetu Dežmanu.
Gospe in gospodje, spoštovana gospa Katarina Kozinc-Huskič z Ministrstva za kulturo, ekscelence, ustvarjalke in ustvarjalci projekta, gospe in gospodje. Raznolikim podobam gospodstva, premoči, vzvišenosti, več vrednosti se človeštvo ne zna izogniti. Spopadi za oblast, vero, posest, ideologijo so naš večni spremljevalec. Zadnjih nekaj stoletij se razvija nacionalna država, ki je danes z demokracijo in kapitalizmom vladajoča oblika oblasti. Znotraj nacionalnega se odvijajo zgodbe razstave, ki jo odpiramo. Vsaka stopa v javnost svoje države z določenim nelagodjem. V obdobju, ki ga označujemo kot razcvet človekovih pravic. Ko je pravica vedeti, spoštovati različno, sočustvovati s tistimi, ki jim zgodovina ni bila naklonjena, jim dati besedo, zagovarjati njihove pravice. To naj bi bila ena od značilnosti naše dobe. Ni naključje, da tako spraševanje spodbujajo, usmerjajo, ustvarjajo prav ženske. Ženske, ki so bile, pa marsikje še so, ali upam, da niste, v zadnjih tisočletjih žrtve mizoginije. Projekt ION vodi ženska, od 7 avtoricah je en avtor. Naj to spraševanje vesti upozori Evropo, da je tak dialog o družinskih skrivnostih v vsaki od evropskih držav ne samo možen, ampak nujen. To je pot k resnici, sočutju, odpuščanju, sožitju in s tako potjo bo Evropa potrdila, da je zasluženo prejela Nobelovo nagrado za mir. Čestitam vsem, ki ste ta projekt uresničili, Urški Purk in Korin Brenko pa za odlično povezovanje vseh pri nastajanju skupne razstave. Srečno!
Najlepša hvala, dr. Dežman. Thank you very much. Dr. Dežman. O razstavi in procesu dela bosta govorili kustosinji razstave, Urška Purg in Korin Brenko. Exhibition curators Urška Purg in Korin Brenko will introduce us to the exhibition and production process. Izvolite.
Dragi gostje, prijatelji, sodelavci, lep pozdrav tudi v najinem imenu Korin. Razstava Identity on the Line, torej kot smo že slišali, sloni na osebnih zgodbah in pričevanjih skoraj 200 posameznikov. Posameznikov, ki so nam zaupali svoje osebne zgodbe in izkušnje in nam dovolili vpogled nemalokrat v boleče in globoke skrivnosti. Naslanjajoč se na podobne pristope in izhodišča smo muzejske in univerzitetne ustanove iz Slovenije, Hrvaške, Švedske, Norveške, Danske, Poljske in Litve raziskovali migracijske procese, ki so zaznamovali zgodovino posameznih držav. Muzej Vest-Agder na Norveškem je preučeval zamolčane zgodbe in družinske skrivnosti po drugi svetovni vojni, s posebnim poudarkom na ženskah, ki so imele romantične odnose z nemškimi vojaki in na vplivih tovrstnih razmerij na njihove otroke in vnuke. Hiša Knuda Rasmussena na Danskem se je osredotočila na Grenlandce, ki živijo na Danskem, ter na srečanja in izkušnje, ki jih je prinesel stik med obema kulturama. V švedskem muzeju Gora in Samijev Ajte na Švedskem so raziskovali prisilne migracije Samijev, ki so nastale kot posledica švedsko-norveške mejne politike, saj je le-ta omejevala dostop do tradicionalnih pašnikov in rejcem severnih jelenov onemogočila preživetje. Muzej Srednjega Pomorjanskega v Slupsku na Poljskem je raziskoval težko usodo regije po drugi svetovni vojni, ko so ogromne množice ljudi nemške narodnosti morale zapustiti svoje domove in so jih nadomestili poljski naseljenci, ki so pogosto po spremembi meja preprosto izgubili svoje domove in premoženja. Na fakulteti za komunikologijo Univerze v Vilni v Litvi so preučevali izkušnje preživelih holokausta in njihovih potomcev, ki so bili udeleženci prisilnih ali prostovoljnih migracijskih procesov, da bi ugotovili, kako se travmatični spomini prenašajo ali se ne iz ene generacije v drugo. Etnografski muzej Istre na Hrvaškem je raziskoval zapleteno politično zgodovino Istrskega polotoka in njegovih prebivalcev po drugi svetovni vojni ter eksodus Italijanov iz regije, zaradi katerega se je območje deloma izpraznilo. V Muzeju novejše zgodovine Slovenije pa smo se osredotočili na zgodbe ljudi, ki so se iz jugoslovanskih republik preselili v Slovenijo v obdobju po drugi svetovni vojni in na njihove potomce. Njihove zgodbe, ki so predstavljene v večjem obsegu tudi znotraj odprti občasni razstavi Od juga, omogočajo pogled v razvejane intimne osebne zgodbe posameznikov in družin 3 generacij, njihove družinske dinamike, procese vključevanja in izključevanja, na vpliv samosvojitve Slovenije in vojn v Jugoslaviji, na usode ljudi ter mnoštvo mogočih identitet, ki se sestavljajo v vsakem posamezniku. Da se vrnem nazaj na razstavo, ki jo danes odpiramo. Identiteta na prepihu ne govori le o posamičnih migracijah, strogo omejenih na države partnerice. Največje bogatstvo te razstave je v preseganju posamičnih primerov migracij, s tem, da smo našli protipole stanj in čustev, ki jih ne glede na izvor in tip migracije lahko najdemo skoraj pri vseh primerih. Ponazorjeni so s citati pričevalcev, ki še dodatno živijo na virtualni platformi, kjer vas tudi vse pozivamo k sodelovanju in deljenju osebnih zgodb. Tako, s tem besedo predajam Korin.
Dear distinguished guests, friends, colleagues, when we started the Identity on the Line project in 2019, we knew we wanted to explore submerged and often silent stories and bring them to the forefront. But I think it is safe to say that we did not know the depths our research project would take us. When we started thinking about a joint exhibition, bringing together 7 migration processes that differed in time frame, context, and geographical location, we were skeptical of the results. But then story after story, conversation after conversation, some common threads started to emerge. All were rooted in the essential nature of humanity, our common feeling. The ever-changing and mobile, yet universal world of emotions that is made up of opposing and complementary polarities, pushing and pulling, creating movement. We move between home and away, belonging and alienation, silence and openness, resilience and vulnerability, injustice and reconciliation. As our team lead, Dr. Katrin Papst from the Vest Agder Museum in Norway wrote, finding one's identity somewhere between these poles is demanding and requires the ability to constantly change and adjust. Two abilities that underscore our human existence. When the COVID pandemic struck, these were the abilities that were also tested the most. We needed to adapt and fast to the changing circumstances. What was initially planned as a traditional indoor exhibition became the hybrid one you see today. Designed as an outdoor installation, the exhibition lives both outside as a physical entity as well as online, as it aims to safely transcend the restriction brought on by the health emergency to bring this common humane narrative to a broader public. Today, as we're finally ready to cut the ribbon on the first of 11 openings of the joint exhibition, we can look back with pride mixed with deep gratitude to all those 178 individuals who put their trust in us and shared their stories. Intimate, painful and joyful, full of heartfelt achievements, thoughtful considerations, solidarity and empathy. I would therefore like to thank Fania, Elin Anna, Dragica, Lidia, Jolanta, Egidio, Maria Grazia, Marina, Giulia and Walter, Thomas, Amra, Boris, Anders, Luigi, Naya, Clara Sophie, Fiona, Dita, Joanna, Bella, Sandra, Naya, Renata, Fruma, Vita, Maria, Irena, Barbara, Giuseppina, Eva, Bjorn, Mikael, Dragan, Juliana, Per, Jan, and all our informants who wish to remain anonymous. I would also like to take a moment to thank our colleagues who are here with us today and some who have joined us online. So thank you, Katrin Papst, Gunhild Obi, Søren Jensen, Ivalu Olsvik, Elina Nigord, Maržena Mazur, Katarzyna Maciejewska, Dorota Čeholevska, Neringa Latvit, Donata Armakauska, Dr. Lidija Nikočević, Tamara Nikolić-Đerić, Maria Paula Arenas Henriquez, and also Dr. Kaja Širok and Izen van Niekerk. And I'd like also to thank the museum for its support and the designers from the TAC Collective who, along with RPS Studio, have brought our ideas into existence. And thank you, dear guests, who have decided to be here today instead of enjoying a nice cup of warm tea somewhere more cozy. Thank you.
Urška in Korin, najlepša hvala. Thank you very much. Zdaj pa še nekaj mojih besed. Ker sem sama tudi ena izmed skoraj 200 pričevalcev, na podlagi katerih je razstava nastala, bom poskušala orisati svojo izkušnjo sodelovanja. Nisem se pripravljala na to izjavo, odločila sem se, da bom povedala kar iz glave in iz srca, ker sem muzeju in sem vam, s katerimi sem sodelovala, neizmerno hvaležna za to neprecenljivo izkušnjo, ker v bistvu brez tega ne bi tako intenzivno razmišljala o svoji identiteti. Tako sem v bistvu obudila vse spomine, dobre in slabe, in prišla do ugotovitve, da je ta proces bil kar dolg, da sem danes to, kar sem in da razmišljam tako, kot razmišljam. Se pravi, da se zavedam svoje identitete, da sem ponosna na svoje korenine in da sem tudi ponosna na državo, v kateri sem. Včasih je zaradi mojih korenin so bili kakšni trenutki nelagodni, ampak danes temu ni tako, zato ker si izbiram dobre ljudi, se pravi družbo, v kateri sem, so dobri ljudje s toplim in dobrim srcem. Zato v bistvu, kar se tiče moje identitete in da bi karkoli vplivalo na mojo identiteto, tega ni več. Mogoče bi potrkala na vest tistih, ki svojimi zlobnimi jeziki ali strupenimi jeziki mogoče tudi nehote koga užalijo. Predvsem v medijih, na portalih je zaslediti veliko sovražnega govora. Predvsem apeliram na te, ki ta sovražni govor širijo, da mogoče razmislijo, preden kaj napišejo ali pa sovražnega rečejo. Zato, ker se vsak izmed nas lahko znajde v taki situaciji. Se pravi, države in staršev, v kateri se rodimo, ne izbiramo, tako da bi ravno iz tega razloga prosila vse, da razmislijo o tem, kaj govorijo, kako se obnašajo do drugih, ker nas vse to lahko doleti, da se tudi pozneje preselimo in zamenjamo bivališče, domovanje. Zato poskrbimo sami in drugi, da se bomo vsi imeli lepo in da se bomo lepo počutili in svojo identiteto gradili tako, kot se spodobi. Hvala vam. Naprej pa k besedi vabim gospo Katarino Kozinc-Huskič, podsekretarko, ki je danes v funkciji vodje službe za evropske zadeve in mednarodno sodelovanje na Ministrstvu za kulturo Republike Slovenije. I invite Mrs. Katarina Kozinc-Huskič, Undersecretary who is representing the head of the Service for European Affairs and International Cooperation at the Ministry of Culture of the Republic of Slovenia, to share a few thoughts. Izvolite.
Spoštovani direktor muzeja, visoki gostje in cenjeni prijatelji muzeja. V imenu Ministrstva za kulturo se zahvaljujem za vaše povabilo na slovesni dogodek predstavitve mednarodnega projekta Identiteta na prepihu, s katerim Muzej novejše zgodovine Slovenije dopolnjuje in bogati dogodke na področju mednarodnega sodelovanja slovenskih muzejev. Muzej novejše zgodovine Slovenije v okviru izvajanja svojega poslanstva opravlja strokovne naloge varovanja, hranjenja in predstavljanja zbirk nacionalne pomembne dediščine na področju zgodovine 20. stoletja. Spremlja družbene in ekonomske spremembe ter se odziva na aktualno in globalno tematiko sodobnega sveta. Ohranjanje spominov in spremljanje globalnih procesov v sodobnem svetu strokovno nadgrajuje tudi v sodelovanju z inštitucijami in posamezniki v tujini. Rezultati sodelovanja se kažejo v uspešnem izvajanju vsebin in projektov sofinanciranih iz evropskih sredstev. Aktivno sodeluje z izmenjavo in povezovanjem strokovnih znanj, vključno z mobilnostjo muzejskih zbirk, in se kaže tudi v mednarodnem projektu Identiteta na prepihu, ki ga finančno podpira program Evropske unije v okviru Ustvarjalne Evrope. Obsežen projekt je rezultat strokovnega dela zaposlenih v muzeju, ki namenjajo skrb za ohranjanje nesnovne kulturne dediščine, ki obsega zbiranje, dokumentiranje, varovanje in ohranjanje pričevanj in zgodb ljudi. Zgodb, ki beležijo dogodke časa, prostora, gospodarskih in družbenih okoliščin. Zgodb, ki se dotaknejo naših čustev in razmišljanj o poteh življenja, o naši preteklosti, sedanjosti in prihodnosti. Zaradi raznolikosti narave in obsega dela so v muzeju v zadnjih desetletjih postali aktivni, navzven odprta inštitucija, in vsi muzeji se odzivajo na družbene spremembe, tako tudi naš. Njihov odziv se kaže z odpiranjem in dostopnostjo zbirk in vsebin tako odraslim, mladim, otrokom in družinam. Dostopnost se kaže preko razstav, publikacij in vedno bolj aktivno tudi preko svetovnega spleta. Ohranjena kulturna dediščina je najbolj pomembna vrednota za izobraževanje, identiteto in razvoj naroda. Želim vam prijeten dan in se vam zahvaljujem.
Hvala lepa za zbrane in plemenite misli. Nadaljujemo z ministrom, svetovalcem Dujetom Ančićem iz Hrvaškega veleposlaništva. Thank you very much for your collected and noble thoughts. We continue with Minister Chancellor Duje Ančić from the Croatian Embassy. Izvolite.
Good afternoon. Thank you. First of all, I would like to apologize for my ambassador. He couldn't be here, and he sends his regards. Thank you, dear organizers and authors, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are witnessing a museum project that in its core has human destinies. Each of these destinies has its own story and its own truth. All of them, once told, are no longer just personal but collective, and the witnesses are artists themselves. The testimonies presented to us through this project are an indication that human destinies, no matter how different, are also similar, and it is not just a matter of similarity with one time and space. The presented destinies are common, I can freely say European, which I believe was the idea behind the Identity Underline project. Let me say a few words about the exhibition Od juga zgodbe o identitetah na prepihu, which I had the pleasure to see. First of all, I would like to congratulate the authors on the topic they have chosen, because although this exhibition on migration and identity covers the period from 1945 to 1990, it actually covers the present and future time, and it's very contemporary. Migrations are constant. They happen with more or less intensity, continuously from ancient time to the present day, and will undoubtedly continue to happen. However, migration, even the mass ones, are always individual. Voluntary migration is always a search for a better life, a better future for oneself and one's children. Do migrants know what really awaits them in the foreign new environment or other country? I would say no. There are very few who can comprehend all the short-term and especially long-term personal, family, identity, cultural and social changes and problems that await them. And some things cannot be foreseen at all. How many of these 40 witnesses at the time of the decision anticipated that their international domestic migration would become international and that they would no longer live in the same state? That on the way to their old homeland, they will cross 1, 2, or 3 international borders? None, probably. People are leaving, but they would like to stay. They want a new home, a new job, a new happiness, but they do not want to be left without at least a part of the old home. So they carry it with them even more in themselves. They would like to be a part of a new society, but they would not want to completely give up their old identity. These are difficult dilemmas. From my national Croatian point of view, I just want to say that I am convinced that Croatians in Slovenia, both those who have lived here for centuries and those whose destinies are presented in this exhibition, have certainly contributed to the development of Slovenia and our bilateral relations. As I said at the beginning, this museological project has in its core individual human destinies from which we need to learn today so that we do not repeat mistakes and omissions tomorrow, and so that some future destinies would be more beautiful and happier. Finally, let me thank the witnesses for enriching us with their stories. Thank you.
Najlepša hvala gospodu Ančiču. K mikrofonu pa vabim veleposlanika Poljske, njegovo ekscelenco Krzysztofa Olenskega. Thank you very much, Mr. Ančič. I invite the ambassador of Poland, His Excellency Krzysztof Olenski, to the microphone. Izvolite.
Dear Dr. Deshman, Excellencies, fellow ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the invitation and thank you very much for all the effort of the museum for making this remarkable and very important exhibition. The part of the exhibition presented today in Muzej Novejšej Zgodovine Slovenii is devoted to the resettlement that took place in Central Europe after World War II. The history of medium-sized Polish Pomeranian town, Słupsk, was used as an example. It's a Pomeranian city which was Germanized as a part of the Prussian state in the 18th and 19th century, and in the spring of 1945 occupied by Russians who voluntarily burned a part of the city, untouched by the war. From the May 1945, the Polish administration was admitted there. Then Poles from the areas of the Vilnius, Lvov and Volyn voivodeships, and people from Siberia and Kazakhstan, deported there by the Soviet from February 1940 onwards, began to be directed to Słupsk for resettlement. In the spring 1945, my father and my grandmother, my grandfather was killed by the Russians in 1941, got off the freight train carrying people, Poles, from deportations in Siberia and Kazakhstan, and from the eastern territories of the Republic of Poland annexed by Soviet Russia against existing international treaties and international law regulations. It was a station in Sianów, some kilometers away from Słupsk. At both the same time, my mother and her parents got off at a train station in a different place in the areas allocated to Poland as a result of the Potsdam Conference. They managed to survive the ethnic cleansing carried out by Ukrainians inspired by NKVD. Both families came from different regions of eastern Poland. My father from the Vilnius region, my mother from Volhynia. Both were expelled from their homes as a result of the Soviet-German aggression. Both families left their entire lives, houses, objects, beloved landscapes, ancestral tombs, churches, on the land which became the area of the Soviet state in 1945. For millions of Poles, Russian occupation and then resettlement became a synonym for crime, barbarism, rape, and plunder. Even in the 1980s, shortly after the establishment of the Solidarity movement in Poland, one of Polish writers, describing people from the east of Poland, wrote that they were defined by the still present fear in their eyes. The Polish settlers brought to Słupsk were people just like my family, exhausted by terror and forced labor in Soviet labor camps, fleeing the cruel brutality of the Red Army soldiers who saved them at the hands of the Ukrainian nationalists. Alongside them were also slaves freed from Germany, people deported from their relatives to forced labor in Germany and Austria, prisoners of war, prisoners of so many concentration camps after all. Also those from Słupsk. Once I asked my father what they found after coming to the new Poland. He told me a story about the woman they were ordered to live with. The woman, the German woman, whose entire family was taken by war. My grandmother and this woman told each other their life stories, tragic, crushed by Nazism and the communism. One day, the Russians took all the remaining Germans, including the owner of the house in which my father was ordered to live, and took them to Germany without sparing them rapes. My father and grandmother lived a long life trying not to touch the objects of the displaced German woman. She was still present there, with the spirit. On the other hand, my mother's father demanded a permit from the authorities to build a new house because, as he claimed, he and his family had experienced a hard time suffering and did not want to build a new life at the expense of other people who were harmed, who were kicked out from their homes. people he had never met before and after. Please forgive me for this personal message. However, I cannot talk about the history of the post-war period in Poland without referring to my personal experiences. Despite the 77 years that have passed since the end of the World War II, Europeans, especially Europeans living in the central and the east central part of the continent, still experience this history. It is still alive because not all the victims of this war have been properly and respectfully buried and mourned. This is an important part of our culture, our identity, and our destiny. Therefore, I am very grateful to the Museum of the Contemporary History of Slovenia for the preparation and presentation of this exhibition. It's extremely important for the present and even more so for the future that we not only know the fate of people, but above all, that we understand them. Thank you very much.
To je bila njegova ekscelenca, gospod Olenski. Nadaljujemo z nagovorom veleposlanika Švedske, njegovo ekscelenco Dagom Harteliusom. This was His Excellency Mr. Olenski. We continue with the address by the Ambassador of Sweden, His Excellency Dag Hartelius. Izvolite.
Hvala. Drage prijatelje, it's a great honor and pleasure for me to be standing here. And first of all, congratulations to the organizers and to the parties partners listed by Corinne who have made this happen and also changed it into a hybrid version, because it is indeed a very important topic. It's important for understanding the different and complex nature of our history and our societies. Sometimes you can get the impression from following the debate that migration is some new phenomenon, but as we heard already, this is something that's been here for thousands of years. It has been a prerequisite for growth and for development, but also for rescue and survival. And my country, Sweden, has been a country of both immigration and emigration also over the last century. It has created suffering in many corners of Europe. It's created injustice, racism, xenophobia, including, as we see with this exhibition in Sweden, with the indigenous people, the Samis, that's been well depicted here. And it's also notable that it was only in 2020 that a Truth Commission was established in this particular case. I would say that our mission as human beings is not to build history narratives that reflect how we would like to see ourselves, but to do our best to find the facts and to find the truth, even if it's uncomfortable and a bit embarrassing, as some of these examples show. This is the way, I think, to reconciliation and for building a better future. So once again, I want to congratulate the organizers and partners for bringing us a step further on this path. Hvala vam.
Najlepša hvala. Na tem mestu pa k besedi vabim še našo zadnjo današnjo slavnostno gostjo, veleposlanico Kraljevine Norveške, njeno ekscelenco Trine Schimøen. Thank you very much. Hereby I invite our final ceremonial speaker today, Norwegian Ambassador Her Excellency Trine Schimøen, to share her thoughts. Izvolite.
Thank you so much. And dear all, dear ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, I'm very pleased and honored to be here today. And I think this exhibition, The Identity on the Line, is actually a very great example of important cooperation across borders. We are talking across borders, and this is cooperation across borders. Identity is connected to places, to people, to language, to traditions, and all these aspects shape us and determine who we are. And we know, well, of course, individual stories may belong to people from faraway countries, but through them, we might recognize our own very personal history and indeed identity. The Norwegian Vest-Agder Museum is the lead partner of the Identity on the Line project. The slogan of this museum is, "We are telling your stories." And I think that in this project, this museum gives us the previously untold stories, like the others do as well, the family secrets from World War II. And indeed, the title of the Norwegian part of the exhibition is "Keep It Quiet, Family Secrets in the Aftermath of World War II." And the family secrets that are related to family members who were on the wrong side of the war. The stories that have been kept within the family because they might have been too shameful or too painful to tell. And I remember, this is the story, not my own story, it's the story of my mother, who was 15 when the war ended. And she says that one of the things that stuck with her was actually how the women who had fallen in love with the German soldier were chased down the street and their hair was cut so that everybody would see how they had betrayed the country. And this was at the same time as everybody else was celebrating. So the story that was told at that time was this story of those who won, the victors. So, sorry about this. The family secrets which should now then be told, because World War II has shaped the lives of millions, because our present is the result of our history, and the family secrets, however painful, are part of it. Now, the exhibition, as we know, is the result of the cooperation of partners from Slovenia, Croatia, Lithuania, Poland, Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. And I must say that the National Museum of Contemporary History is the perfect venue for this exhibition, however cold. But so I would like to invite us all, formally open this wonderful and important exhibition, and I believe we will now cut the ribbon. Thank you so much.